Hi guys, I've put the second video together for the universal carrier that I did last week, and it's just a diorama placing it in a kind of Burma context with an Indian Army, not Indian Army markings or decals, but as close to a version of an Indian Army 77th Brigade universal carrier as I could do with the decal sheet included. So if you've seen my last video, you'll know roughly where I'm coming from. British troops, Indian troops, Nigerian troops fighting the Japanese in Burma and on the border with India, what is modern day Bangladesh, and it's kind of unsung heroes, not very spoken about, and I couldn't really find a kit that was specific to that region, to that conflict, and because I have a family connection, I wanted to do a bit of a Chindits diorama, basically botch it together with what I could find. So in my previous video, I painted the universal carrier. I muddied it up as per the photos that you've just seen. The Indian Army, British Army in Burma, everything was always filthy from what I've seen. They didn't have a lot of vehicles. The Indian 77th Brigade had universal carriers, Stuart tanks, and then at the end of the war had Sherman tanks. So this is just going to be a diorama using Tamiya's universal carrier, the European figures that come with that kit, and the North African Western Desert figures that come with that kit, because by placing it in Burma, we can have shorts and trousers on the soldiers. So I added in 4 more soldiers from a Gurkha ICM Gurkha rifles. Yeah, and that's what I'm working with, really. Starting just with 2 big blocks of polystyrene, 2 like bricks of polystyrene, and 1 I split diagonally down the middle, so that left me with a raised road and a kind of banking on either side, like a ditch on either side. Just thinking about that Indian kind of paddy fields and drainage ditches kind of look that you get in that part of Asia, and that's going to stop suddenly a stream, and a bridge that's far too rickety for the universal carrier. So the Indian Army patrol, the British soldiers have kind of come to a dead end. So that's my idea. So I'm mixing my usual coffee grounds, spent coffee grounds out of the cafetiere, with normal casting plaster, and getting it runny enough, because I just want a fine kind of skim, really, over the polystyrene model. This is a bit different, really. I've not done one like this for a few weeks, because I was trying to incorporate architecture, little bits of buildings in my dioramas, but I always jump around. You guys probably the same. If I do something European, British, World War II, and then I want to do something different after that, I do something Vietnam War, American, and this is just something a bit different. I fancied Done a lot of main battle tanks recently. And then after this, I've got the tank destroyer, American tank destroyer, based on the Sherman body with the open cab and the 80mm gun. I think it's the M36B. So I've got some American soldiers as well. So it's going to be a kind of Normandy kind of context for that one. And I'd love to build a diorama, but with Christmas upon us, it's just going to be a case of seeing what I can fit in. So like I say, I wanted this runny and quite thin, but it's a mud road. I don't want it too flat and straight. The universal carrier is filthy as well, so I did want it kind of showing ridges and tracks and things like that in the surface. My latest version of the video software that I use, which is just OpenShot, the free OpenShot editor. The last few videos I've made, it's just not been able to keep up. The speed of replaying the video back is just so juddery that I have to keep jumping ahead to keep up with the timer on my microphone. It's just a drag, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I try to keep the file sizes down. I try to not put too much stuff on, and not have anything else running behind the editor. But so I don't know what it is. But I've only made videos while I've been on YouTube. I've never used it before filming these tank builds and diorama builds. But yeah, it's just in the time in a minute on my microphone's clock. I think it moves forward about 3 seconds on my actual OpenShot editor, replaying it back. So I don't know what that's about. And it takes so long to upload, which I know is my file sizes. I don't know, but I have to leave it to do it during the night. So it takes 4 to 5 hours. And that's not to upload to YouTube. That only takes about an hour and a half. So I suppose it's just the nature of a free bit of stuff. But yeah, it's a quick process, this. You just have to work with it, get your hands dirty. The plaster, depending on how old the plaster is, it goes off at a different rate. This is a fresh bag that I've just bought, and it stayed quite wet for a while, but that's a good thing, because that allows you to, if you've got foliage or fence posts, or you're building a trench, or you put in sandbags, whatever, if the plaster's still wet, then you don't need to use glue. You could just push through the plaster into the polystyrene, and when the plaster dries, it fixes whatever the thing is. So I put a couple of trees in, some hedges, some tropical plants. Yeah, and I even built the bridge, which is going to be on there like a rickety bridge, footbridge. The reason why the patrols come to a bit of a standstill. So then in that way you don't have to use a lot of PVA glue because the plaster just holds everything. Yeah, I've not found a tool that I love yet for moving the plaster about and shaping it and getting it where it needs to be. I use a 30cm ruler, just because it's a flat surface. But if I went to a craft shop, I'm sure I'd see different tools from the world of clay, making pots, and I'd see tools from different crafts that I'd be able to use. But just wanted to keep it rough for this, really. It's just a mud road through the jungle. So the bridge, guys, is just coffee stirrers, very thin in scale, coffee stirrers snapped up into the desired length, and that's crossing a stream with, like, to scale, like about a 5 or 6 foot drop from the road. But yeah, you know, it's pretty simple, but it's got a lot of figures on this. I think there's 10 figures in total. So I didn't want to make something too complex. The figures and the vehicle are the focus of it. I didn't really show painting the figures when I did the model, but if you see that video, in between each stage of doing something further to the model, I went back and did the next bit of painting on the figures, whether it be the webbing or the rifles or the skin tone. So you'll see, just by them being on the same workstation, you'll see me doing them bit by bit. But yeah, I'm certainly not an expert. That's why I didn't include them. I'm not an expert at all with the figures. I do them quite crudely, just dry brushing. I'm not the best at faces, and it's just the overall effect, really, that I'm looking to achieve. I don't want to enter any of the individual figures for a prize, but if you see the finished diorama, and straight away you can picture a moment in history, an advance party of soldiers in the Burmese jungle, then that's what I'm trying to achieve, really. For some reason, when I mixed the plaster with the coffee, I must have done a bigger ratio of coffee, because the brown of the plaster, when it had dried, it was this chocolate brown, and it was so good that I just left it. I didn't paint anything onto that. I've tried to add some of the Vallejo mud and sand effect dust, just to give it a very matte kind of dried mud effect, and that was only just to unify it with the mud that's on the universal carrier. But the actual finished plaster, once it had dried with coffee mixed in, it was, for me, was the perfect tone anyway. So I've not painted any of the surface of the model. I did paint some of the plants that I got, because they were kind of a bright green, as you can see, like a unrealistic green. I painted the bridge Vallejo chocolate brown, and then just rubbed it a little bit with a wet brush to kind of rub it into the grains. Those coffee stirrers are like very thin balsa wood, and there's like a grain roughness to them. And also I like to snap them rather than cut them with snippers, because you get like a rough, broken plank kind of look, which I think is really good. And the foliage I bought quite a few months ago when I did a napalm diorama to put a Vietnam vehicle in. I ended up just putting a Land Rover in it in the end, but it was from an aquarium supplies, so it was just various tropical plant leaves in plastic that you can paint, and they were cheap, so I just tried it out, and I think they still look okay, as long as you neutralise the bright green kind of colour of them. So I should have really just pinned them all down to something and primed them with a rattle can, but in the end I'd already pushed them into the wet plaster spontaneously, and then afterwards realised they weren't the right colour, so I had to just touch them up with a brush with a bit of dark green on, a bit more realistic. In terms of the figures, guys, the ICM Gurkha rifles, they're more detailed and a bit more slender limbed, than almost slightly different scale than the figures that come for free with the model. And I didn't do a lot of heating and cutting and filling and to change the model figures. I think I swapped the arms around on a couple of them just to give a bit of variety, because I had the Western Desert 8th Army guys from the previous universal carrier that I'd already made. So I had duplicated a soldier that's sitting, the driver, and a soldier standing that I didn't use when I did my previous one in a Normandy diorama. So I added it into this. So I've used all the figures from the box, apart from the commander, which I've put with my Cromwell tank, because he just matched that really well. So then I've added in the 4 Gurkha rifles from ICM and this hodgepodge of troops that come for free with Tamiya. And there is a difference, you know, there's a bit of a lack of detail and stuff, but they all look realistic. And like I've said already, it's the overall effect that I'm after, which I think is quite good. As you can see, guys, I've got some trees that I've pushed in there, like saplings. They're just from the actual garden. They're just dried. Flower heads since it's December. I think I picked them in October, and they've been in an empty jar, in a dry jar, just drying out for the last couple of months. And I've just pushed them through the wet plaster into the polystyrene, and they look to me quite fitting for the context. A bit tropical, and yeah, if you had the inclination, then you can get all kinds of different palm trees to create your jungle scene. Just make sure that you don't impinge on the actual space for the vehicle. Keep checking that you're leaving enough space for the vehicle and men, because if you go a bit mad with the foliage, you can leave yourself not enough space, which I've done in the past, for the actual what you're putting on there. This will be my last build, I think, for this year. You know, I've got some models coming over Christmas. First World War ones, so I'll probably start the new year either with this American tank and American soldiers in Normandy, or do something from the First World War. So you can see there, actually, I've used the same. I'm trying to use up the resin that I've got, the water effect, still water effect by AK Interactive, which it's never worked for me. It always flakes up and goes like chewing gum. But I just thought I'd try it one last time, and I can use it a bit thicker because I'm trying to use the bottle up. So I blue tacked either side, but in the end I took the blue tack off and put masking tape there, just as a little border, and just put it all in. So it looked good for about 3 days, and then on the 3rd or 4th day, it kind of all peeled off again. It dried and peeled off like a big strip of hot glue. So I've just added more actually to it to see if it'll be any good the second time. But I think it's time to chuck it away and buy a different brand, because it seems useless to me, that still water effect. It just peels off like a big chunk of chewing gum. It doesn't sit on the surface of the diorama. Other than that, I'm pleased with the foliage. I'm pleased with the little trees. I'm pleased with the scale of it, which is always a thing, you know, how big do you want the diorama? And I notice a lot of dioramas on Instagram, they're very, very small. The vehicle's kind of clinging on to a very small area of space, which they look good, they always look good, but I just don't seem to be able to do that kind of scale. I like a big chunk of something, you know. I think that's because when I first started doing stuff like this, when I was a teenager, I did them as playing surfaces to play with 1/72 figures on and 1/72 tanks. So it was like a gaming, like a war gaming surface when I did it, and they were huge bits of board that I used to keep under my bed. So even this to me feels small, and yet on Instagram they're like the size of an ashtray, I suppose, with just enough space for the model and then a road sign or something like that, and easier to store, I realise, because these big things get a bit, it's start to become a bit of a pain. I sold a couple of these on eBay, but only made £10, £15. I sold my Panzer IV, a diorama I'd done from one of my Russian tanks, and a Land Rover that I'd modified to be like a Northern Ireland Army Land Rover, armoured one. So I think in total, it came to about £50 that I'd made for those items. So I roughly made back the cost of the model. So I don't know, obviously not at the level of skill where I could make a profit selling them at the moment, but I do it for my own pleasure really anyway. So you can see the vehicle's in place now, soldier leaning on the front of it, and then the rest of the soldier have kind of appraising the situation with the broken bridge, and the officer, the commanders, pointing off into the distance. But yeah, I'm pleased with it. I'm quite pleased with it. Like I say, the water effect is about useless, so I wouldn't buy that again. I think it was £12. But it just seems like a realistic kind of scale of the situation, and it feels to me it's quite indicative of the conflict. So yeah, all the best to everybody watching. Hope you have a good Christmas and New Year. Let me know in the comments what your New Year resolutions are, what your plans will be, and yeah, some interesting builds hopefully to come next year. Thanks for watching, guys.